So we're going to go ahead and run this right here, and then you'll see a result return. Pretty much everything from his profile is going to be available. Here we can see that we've exported all of that same data we were looking at earlier into a new CSV. You can scrape one profile at a time with our API, or you can scrape 1,000 LinkedIn profiles at a time with our API. Hi, I'm Colton Randolph, a technical writer here at ProxyCurl. Now, ProxyCurl is a B2B enrichment API. We incorporate a couple of different data sources with our API to provide that enrichment service, but the primary source is going to be LinkedIn. We also have a LinkedIn dataset that we sell called LinkDB that is exclusively data scraped from LinkedIn. So we're pretty good at scraping data from LinkedIn, and this video is going to be all about how to scrape LinkedIn profiles at scale. And we're going to do it in a pretty convenient way because you're not going to have to deal with any of the headaches normally involved with scraping LinkedIn, like building your own scraper, constantly having to update it when LinkedIn intentionally breaks it, so on and so forth. You'll just be able to plug our API in and pull the LinkedIn data that you need. The first thing that you'll need to use our API is to create an account and get an API key. So you'll need to go to our homepage. You can go to proxycurl.com or you can go to nubella.co/proxycurl. And then you're going to want to click sign up. It'll ask you for some information here, and then click continue. I won't do that because I already have an account, of course. So you can go ahead and click login over here. And then the first thing you're going to see on your dashboard is your API key right here. Don't bother trying to use this. It'll already be deactivated by the time you do. But this is exactly what you'll need right here to scrape any profiles, any LinkedIn profiles using our API or doing anything with our API. So we're going to want to go ahead and copy that right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go over here to our documentation. So our person profile endpoint is the endpoint that's going to revolve around enriching social media profiles, such as a LinkedIn profile. So you can pull any LinkedIn profile out there, any publicly available LinkedIn profile out there using this endpoint. There are a couple different ways to do it. We have, for example, a curl example right here in the documentation. We also have a Python example. You can do it any way you like. I'm going to be using Python. So I'm going to go over to my IDE over here, PyCharm. And then I already have a simple Python script done right here. So you can see I went ahead and imported requests, which is what we'll be using to query our API. And then I have my API key right here, as well as our headers right here, which are necessary. And then you can see the API endpoint right here. So this is actually the person profile endpoint right there. You can see these are the exact same. So this is querying our person profile endpoint. And then we have some parameters right here. So we only have three, the first of which is our LinkedIn profile URL, which is required. You can see this right here. You can also use Facebook or Twitter or X. And we are working on adding more social media identifiers that you can use with our API as well. Now our second parameter right here is going to be use cache if recent. So this is actually going to pull the freshest data. This data, if you're using this parameter right here, is going to be guaranteed scraped within 29 days. Often this data is scraped fresh, scraped live in real time. However, if it was scraped within 29 days, we do cache the results. So if you scrape that same profile again right after that, for example, you would be pulling the cache results from the first scrape that you just did. We could also use if present. Now, if we use if present, this is just going to be pulling any data that we have at all. This is not going to be fresh per se. It could be fresh, but it's just going to pull any data that we have in our data set already. The difference between these two parameters is if recent, again, guarantees 29 days of freshness, but this does cost 1 credit additional as opposed to the default query. So if you're using if recent, it's going to cost 2 credits per successful result instead of 1. However, generally speaking, I would recommend using if recent because it is going to pull the freshest and best data. So it's pretty simple. We have a lot of different parameters you can use in here. So if you want to pull more data, you could do that. So for example, you can also pull a personal contact number and a personal email using our person profile endpoint. These data points don't come from LinkedIn at all. So these data points come from our external enrichment sources. But you can still use a LinkedIn identifier, and we'll see if we can match that identifier to things like other contact information in our database. So that's how that works right there. So I am going to actually I'm going to change that profile, and I'm going to use this profile right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this profile that we looked at earlier over into PyCharm. And then down here, what we're going to have is a simple response and a simple way to print that response. This is very basic Python. ChatGPT could whip up something like this for you from scratch, even if you don't understand any Python whatsoever. It's not too complex to use our API. There are a lot of convenient ways you can pull data from it. So we're going to go ahead and run this right here. And you'll see this. Give it a second here. And then you'll see a result returned right here, which is going to be that profile right there. So for example, if we click on this, we can see the individual's profile picture right there. And then we'll see all the other stuff from his profile as well, such as his name, his occupation, what he does, the Englishes he speaks, so on and so forth. Pretty much everything from his profile is going to be available right there. And now keep in mind, not all of this will be populated because we haven't requested all this information. So for example, here at the end, we did not use the personal contact parameters, so we won't have these two returned anyways, even if we had it available. Now, when it comes to scraping multiple LinkedIn profiles at the same time, you can definitely do that with our API as well. So for demonstrating that, I have a simple Python script here, and the main difference is that it uses a CSV file as the input format and as the export format. So you can see here we have an input file named input LinkedIn profile CSV, and our output file is enriched_data.csv. And then we have a function to extract all of our data into a CSV file. We can go ahead and, well, let me show you the input file. So I have a input CSV right here, which has my LinkedIn and then two of the other profiles that I've showed you today. So if we go ahead and run this right here, let me go ahead and click back over here, click run on this, and give it a second here, because it will take a second since it's using a couple different LinkedIn profiles. We'll see data exported to enriched_data.csv. So that's going to export it to a CSV in the same folder as the Python script in the other CSV. And then we can go ahead and click on the enriched data files right here. All right, and now if we open up this CSV right here, we can see that we've exported all of that same data we were looking at earlier into a new CSV. We could also export more than this, so we could add, our contact information over here as well, so on and so forth. And we can do whatever we want with this data now since we have it in a CSV. We could import it into our CRM, so on and so forth. So you don't just have to do this one by one. You can scrape one profile at a time with our API, or you can scrape 1,000 LinkedIn profiles at a time with our API, however many you want. And that's pretty much as simple as it is. Using our API, you can scrape all of the LinkedIn data you want without any of the normal hassles involved. And there are a lot of different powerful use cases that you can use that data for. And now our data is compliant with GDPR and CCPA, all of the normal regulations, because we only work with public data. So for example, using Google, I can go ahead and use this query right here, which will pull results exclusively from LinkedIn, specifically LinkedIn profiles, which have that structure right there. And we can also go ahead and open this in a new window, and we can see that this profile is still publicly available despite the fact that I'm no longer logged into my LinkedIn. Now, going over here to the second result that is available, right there, this profile is still available as well. So this is also a publicly available profile. But on the third result, however, you'll see if we try to click this, then it's going to open an auth wall. So this profile right here is not publicly available. So this means that we could not scrape this profile unless it was previously public available, and we still have this profile already available in our database. But normally this profile will not work because it's not publicly available. So going through here, though, you can see all of the information that's available on these profiles. It's quite a bit of information. All this information right here could be used for your benefit. So there are several different use cases. First thing that comes to mind is recruiting of this kind of information right here. But depending on who you're targeting, such as a decision maker, there's a lot of different use cases of this kind of information that you could use from a LinkedIn profile. So long story short, ProxyCurl goes in there and scrapes millions of publicly available profiles, and we've built a huge database full of interesting profiles for you to pull from our API. So that's pretty much all there is. Using our API, there are a lot of different interesting things you can do. This is only scratching the surface, but we do scrape LinkedIn profiles very well. We skip all the headaches normally involved with the process and make your life a whole lot easier. There's a lot of interesting things and useful and profitable things you can do with the data that you can pull from our API. companies, contacts, salary, jobs, everything, much more than just solely scraping LinkedIn profiles. So if you want, you can go ahead and head to proxycurl.com and create your account for free. We would love to have you. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you found some value out of it. Thanks for watching.